on that night that has been, spoken of. Anyhow, on that night that is, being spoken of on June 7th, we got a call from Jamalcolm, who you all just heard from, letting us know that he was, had been stopped by the police. So with my position in the organization, I'm generally a police liaison. When we're out doing things for the police show, I am the voice that goes to bridge the gap between the organization and the police. So I've had lots of experience in dealing with the police. I know a lot of times with things we hear about with police brutality, they say, well, if you had just listened or if you had just, respected the officer, then, the things wouldn't escalate. So with these things always in the front of my mind when I deal with the police, is how I approach the situation that evening. It was just myself and one other member, Neff, who arrived. We parked far enough away to where it didn't look like we were intimidating this officer, and just went up to see what was going on. He was already in the back of a car. We saw a tow truck there at the scene. And so the first question, as I walked up very slowly and calm, talking pretty much how I am now, was, are you guys towing the tow truck? And immediately we got met with negative reactions from the officer that was there. He immediately started cussing at us and telling us we needed to get the F away before we got arrested for interfering. So at this point, still being logical and doing the steps I need to ensure that I'm not endangering this officer or making him feel that way, I backed up several feet from him and then asked the question, how far back do you need me to be so I'm not interfering, not trying to interfere, and was just met with nothing receptive. So at this point, we started to record, which is our right, which we know that we're legal to do. So as we're 30 feet away recording, two of our other members showed up at this point, and as soon as that happened, the officer became hostile. He called in for backup and was telling us to get back in our cars, which is not breaking a law by us not doing so, because we were out there to observe our comrade, to make sure that everything was safe with him and find out what was going on. So at no point are we breaking any laws. We're just standing our ground with our rights as supposedly Detroit United States citizens. So in between all of this officer began calling for backup erratically, to which we're still calmly asking him, what the problem is, why is any of this even taking place, and what we can do to move it forward. And I even questioned why he was calling in backup with such a frantic tone, because we know how they're going to respond. We saw how they responded to Tamir Rice when the call was not dispatched properly. And so we questioned him about this, saying that you're going to send these officers here thinking that there's a hostile situation, and it's not. So upon the backup coming, which was about 5 cars all together at once, one of them came so crazy to the scene that they actually totaled the front of the police car, crashed into a tree, crashed into a 22-foot pole that missed us just by the grace of God, because we were all standing in line for it. So it just narrowly missed killing or injuring someone greatly. So in this moment of confusion, everyone is stunned and trying to figure out what is going on here, because it's getting out of hand too fast. So as we all still remain calm, they begin to make arrests. The first thing I see, as I'm still in my role as police liaison, having gone to legal observer training and different things to prepare me for these situations, I'm observing at this point. I'm not trying to do anything more than that. So I'm several feet away, and I look and I see one of our members here, Mikera, get snatched, her hand snatched, and began to be put in cuffs. And she asked what was going on, and then I just see them telling her to shut up and slamming her on the hood of a police car. This is a woman. So I'm still shocked. This is all within a matter of us being there maybe 5 minutes, all of this taking place. Then I see another one, the one who got out of the car that had just been crashed, not take a moment to make sure he's okay or to clear his mind, but jump straight to my other friend and began to arrest her, screaming at us, shut the F up, and we're asking what's going on. So at this point, I remove myself even further from the situation, where I'm standing next to an officer who is like, just make sure you stay back. So I get behind him even further. And then someone else comes and drags me into all this chaos and begins to put handcuffs on me. In the process, I have my hands up the whole time, saying I'm not resisting. As soon as I see that they're coming over trying to attack me, basically, and it didn't matter. All the things that you hear about, well, you shouldn't resist and you shouldn't do that, I tried all that, and it didn't work for me with the Detroit police that showed up that day. They slammed me onto the car, to which I just went with it. I'm thinking about my 2 babies and how I need to make it home to them and not be Sandra Bland or a hashtag. But that didn't stop them. They slammed me onto the car. I hear one of them tell me that he's going to break my effing arm, and I'm still saying, but I'm not resisting. Another one comes up and snatches off some jewelry and some very precious things to me. And then one of them, as he's pushing me down onto the hood of the car, snatches a chunk of my hair out, which I now keep on me as a reminder and just as a souvenir of what we've been through. This got snatched out of the back of my hair by officers as I'm telling them I'm not resisting. Now, if you're pushing me down onto a car to arrest me, what purpose do you have to pull my hair backwards away from my scalp to where I'm bald there now? The hair will never grow there. So I'll always have a mark to remind me of that injustice. So in the midst of all this, I'm still telling them that I am not resisting, and they're still just cussing at us, yelling at us, and they handcuff me. And as I'm walking to the car, I can see an officer with a closed fist punching one of the women several times as he puts her into a police car. So in my stunned state, I stop, and they kick me in my shins hard enough through my long work pants to have skinned my shins up. And no one ever told us we were under arrest. My question was, are we under arrest? They always tell you, ask, are you being detained? And otherwise, are you free to go? But all those things that they say should be guaranteed by this Constitution just got ignored that night. And so in the back of the car, they snatched me in by my handcuffs, dragged me across the seat. The handcuffs twisted on my wrist so bad that it was swollen to the size of a tennis or golf ball for days. And I still have pain in my wrist. When we got to the jail, there was all kind of things that went back and forth that got changed on our paperwork, from this being a misdemeanor incident to felonies. We have these felony wristbands that we were like, they just told us this was a misdemeanor for interfering with police, and that got changed. You can see it crossed off on our paperwork. And as a result of these felony charges, they forced us to give DNA samples. They didn't allow me to see the medical person until almost 5 a.m. This incident happened around 11 p.m. that night, so hours had gone by, and the only thing that was very basic, I got a Motrin. But meanwhile, when I actually got out and went to the emergency room, I found out I have a contusion in my shoulder, which has since given me problems. Over a month later, I still can't perform my job functions the way I was before. We were in filthy cells when we tried to tell them about the fact that there was feces smeared on the floors and there was dried blood on the walls and you could see urine. They said, well, we're not housekeepers, is what they told us. Meanwhile, we're in here with open cuts, subject to infection, and still no charges were ever pressed. We waited until the next day at 6 p.m., hours after we had been arrested, for anyone to come out and take pictures of us after every couple hours, every time someone walked by, when's someone going to come investigate this? And it wasn't until the next day when our lawyer finally showed up that we were even able to be photographed for our injuries. So after spending all this time where we just kept getting delayed and delayed for an arraignment, so we couldn't have a bail set, so we were forced to stay here with no charges. And then finally, after it was not 36 hours, but on the third day, we got released, and still with no charges. We inquired about our DNA samples being destroyed like the code said with the MCL code, and we got laughed at by the sergeants and the Detroit police. They said, we're not going to destroy that. And I said, well, someone told us that, if nothing came of this, that we had the right to. And they said, well, good luck with that. So it just further goes back into all of the emotional stress of the situation that we have felt. My faith has been shaken. We just hear about what you should do in order to get justice, but that doesn't work either every time. And it didn't work for us that night, and it's been horrible. The harassment hasn't stopped. We've been out here daily with several more encounters by the police where they have seen the decal. I had to take a decal off my car that said New Era Detroit because I noticed that it started getting me pulled over and harassed at parks, just doing regular things. We had a police kick us out of the park at 9:00 p.m. when the sign said open till 10. And when we asked about it, he just said, well, the sign's wrong. And the whole time he's shining the light on our New Era Detroit logo. So since then, it hasn't just been this one incident. There's been fallout from it. Whenever I see police lights, whenever I hear the sirens, I just feel anxious. I feel sick to my stomach. I don't feel safe anymore. And we see what has happened all over the country. And it just a month prior, something happened with us that very quickly could have escalated to be the same thing. Any one of us could have been a hashtag. When we saw them take us away, the way that they showed up, it could have gone so much worse. And so we want to stop this before it continues. And so now we're still dealing with the effects of this. And some of us are concerned about the fact that we're coming out and speaking like this. Is it going to make us more of a target? But we're not going to let fear keep us from standing up as the community has come to depend on us for, as the community needs us, as our children needs us. We cannot let that fear keep us from going forward. So we know there's a threat where the harassment could get worse. It's caused a strain on my split custody with my children because when we have a Mother's Day picnic that's supposed Baton Rouge.
My name is Nev.
You gotta speak up for me.
Can you hear me?
Is there a button on the mic?
This is the battery, I think it's gone.